Good morning. I'm streaming up some more stories for you today, and we're in the Word of God, starting in Genesis 1. Today I hope to finish the 7 days of creation. We've done days 1, 2, 3, and 4. We're beginning now on day 5. This is the Word of God. Then God said, "Let the waters teem with swarming things, and be filled with creatures, living creatures, and let birds fly across the heavens." And it was so. And God created the monsters and the creatures of the deep, big creatures, and all the things that move in the seas. And God created the birds. And God saw that these things were good. And God blessed them and said, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the seas." To the birds he said, "Fill the earth." So there was evening and there was morning, day 5. Now God said, "Let the earth bring forth creatures, beasts and livestock and creepy things." And it was so. And God made the large animals, each one after its own kind. And God made the livestock, each one after its own kind, and the creepy things also, each one after their own kind. And God saw that it was good. And God said, "Let us make mankind in our own image, and according to the way we look, and let them rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the sky and all the animals." And so God created mankind in his own image. He created male and female in his own image. And God blessed them, and he said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth, and take charge of it, and rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the sky, and over everything that moves on the earth." And then God said, "Look around. I've given you the trees and the plants for your food. All of these things will be for you to eat. Everything that has seed, it'll be food for you. And to the animals," he said, "look around. I have given you all the trees and the vegetation, and that will be your food." And that's how it was. And God looked around at everything he made, and he saw that all of it was very good. And so there was evening and morning, day 6. And the heavens and the earth were completed along with all of their inhabitants. And on the 7th day, God rested from everything he had done. And God blessed it and made it a special day of rest for all the creatures that he had made. And that is the story of the creation. Now there's a lot in here, a ton, and there's more than I have time to go into, I'm afraid. And so I want to bring out just 2 or 3 spiritual principles. For one thing, I want to say this chapter makes it really hard for anyone to believe in the evolutionary principles that have been outlined by Charles Darwin and a lot of others that have followed him. But I'm not going to go into that because I think you've already been through this already and talked about this already. What I want to talk about is spiritual principles for your life. And the one thing I want to focus on, God said it was good. We said this over and over again. God keeps looking at the stuff he's making and said, God saw that it was good. So, think about in your life, when you see something is good, and maybe you might think in terms of going to see a movie, you know? I went to see a movie the other day, and it was really good, you know? Or a play. I went to see a play. It was great. Or maybe I went out and played basketball with my friends. It was really good. You know? So when God looks around and he sees everything he has made and he said, "Wow, this is really good. What's going on here? And what is this?" And I would say maybe, who is this for? Like, what was this made for? And I mean, it's almost like this is like God's entertainment. You know, and this is continuing on through the whole creation. So it's not just the sun, it's not just the stars and all that. it's even you and me. So when you think, what am I here for? What does it mean when God looks at this and says, wow, this is good, you know? And so I think we can get a lot from that. Why did God make all this stuff? Is it for us? Like, you know, he gives us all this stuff to dominate and take control of. Is that why he made it? Or are we just managing? And that's what the other thing I want to talk about was, because I think, you know, okay, so you can talk about evolution, you can talk about, you know, one day or 1,000 years or whatever, and, you know, we've got all these theories, and we've got, like, you know, some people say, oh, you know, boom, it was created all in a day. Then you've got other people say, well, no, you know, you observe the science, and it took a long time, and so these days are like long days. But I think one of the hard parts for me when I look at that is I have trouble with this verse that talks about vegetables, because, you know, this is one of those kind of stumbling blocks that people had overcome when they're talking about long days. However, I don't think we should be like picking this thing apart and trying to like make it into science. I think we should look at the spiritual principle here, because what is God saying when he gives everyone vegetables for food? And, you know, if you're like an average guy like me, you know, you like a good steak, and you're like, you know, what is this all about? Vegetables. Like, you know, God's given people all these tasks, and like to overcome the great beast of the sea, you know, when you think about like sharks and whales and stuff, you know, this tigers and lions and all this stuff, you know, this is gonna take some meat, like this is gonna take some like real protein, you know, to do this work. But I guess God's saying maybe you don't need all that protein, or maybe he wants us to eat boiled eggs in the morning. I don't know. But, you know, anyway, I was wondering what the principle is here. And I think when we look at this as a scenario which is very gentle. God is saying managing the earth doesn't mean killing and destroying. And how good of a job have we done with that, you know? So what is God saying when he says dominate? You know, I use the word... you know, I wrote it out as, in my Bible it was subdue, but I said take charge. You know, you could use the word dominate the earth is what God said to do. But I think the whole idea is that God intended us to manage the earth a bit more gentle than that. Anyway, man gets this job to do, and he does it. Just like God gave the stars a job to do, now God gives us a job to do. And not just Christians, but like everyone, to manage the earth well. So how well are we doing that? But then the last principle I see in this story is about rest. And what does that mean? I was wondering, you know, do you think God was tired? You know, if I see the world, it's quite a big place. Maybe God was tired and that's why he rested. You know, I think we get this idea that God gave us the seventh day, or the day of rest, because we're tired and we need the time to like catch up and sleep. So, you know, we don't go to church or anything because it's better if I get the rest and sleep. And that may be true, because I think a lot of us are overworked, and we don't get enough food or vitality each day because we just rush off to work. And so the work we do is hard and it beats us down, so we need the rest. But I just wonder if you stop and think about what God used that rest for, about slowing down and reflecting. And isn't that what God set aside extra time for us to do? And in Hebrews 4, God says, to the people who don't obey him, you won't enter into my rest. So think about yourself, and think about whether or not you take Sunday off. Have you entered God's rest, or God's time of reflection? Well, this has been really crammed, a lot of information. I skipped a lot. I hope you look back over at these chapters, but we're moving on next week, or tomorrow, to more stories. But this has been Genesis 1, the creation of the world.